Okay, today we are going to talk about momentum in stocks, whether you're trading the option of the stock itself, and just answering the question, is this momentum going to last or is it going to fizzle? And the idea with this is that, you see a stock taking off and then there's times when you're like, "Oh my god, I got to buy it," or you buy the calls and it seems like that's near the highs and it just kind of pulls back and it's kind of frustrating. And then other times when you see something going and you remember that lesson and you thought, "Well, I'm just going to wait for it." And it just takes off without you. And it's like, man, was I a weenie for a teeny? And I missed that. And so we're trying to figure out what's the right balance in terms of being patient and waiting for a pullback, or recognizing that the momentum that's happening right now is unique and special. The magnifying glass of the market is on the stock, meaning that traders are just kind of piling in and you're going to get the sustained move that you can participate in. So if we look at some recent moves here, Oracle. So Oracle had this huge earnings move. Okay, so I'm going to assume that, obviously if you held through earnings, awesome, but we're not talking about that. So the idea then is earnings come and then Oracle gaps up and, it goes from like 320 to 360. And it's like, wow, is this something, is this something that I should just dive in on? Okay, well, and if you did, like say, like, oh my God, we're at 360 or we're at 350 and you buy calls, and then since then you've just been kind of sucking wind. Okay. Whereas, there's other times like with Microsoft when it had earnings last time around, not that time, but this time around, you can see after earnings, Microsoft gaps up and then it just keeps going higher. Okay. So that's, one thing I want to look at there. And then you've got other moves like Tesla where it gaps up and then it just keeps on going. All right. So how can we tell it's going to keep on going? Or is it, going to be a false move? Because here, Tesla has a great move and then it just kind of dies. And then here, Tesla has a great move and then it just kind of dies. Here, it kind of has a great move, kind of dies. And then here, when it breaks and it has this fantastic, amazing move, if you're long calls, because market makers, they typically price in on Tesla about a $20 move over the course of a week. So when you get a move like this where it's $50 or more in 3 days, your options explode. Your out of the money options explode, and it's fantastic. So let's kind of dive in and look at this. And to understand momentum and if it's playable or not, if it's keepable or not, or if it's going to last or not, we want to understand kind of what's happening in the relationship of the price action right now in relation to the rest of the market. So if we look at that, so the tool that I use on this is just called it's a momentum highlight. And these bright blue bars essentially highlight that something special is happening in the market. Okay, and it's rare to see these on a daily chart. If you get a big move like this, you're going to see it and it's going to sit there. But what gets interesting is when you drill down to the 30-minute chart, the 30-minute chart can kind of tell you like, all right, this momentum is either here to stay or it's about to fade. And so when the bars are highlighted like this, the idea is that momentum is coming in. It's a combination of volume. It's a combination of all these things. And as long as it's kind of light blue like that, then you've got essentially the power of momentum. The wind is at your back, so to speak, and you can be comfortable with that. When the bars turn gray, okay, all that's just saying is, now it could keep going up, but it's just saying that the special situation where you had all this magnified attention on this stock at this time is currently paused. Now you can decide for yourself. It's like, okay, well, geez, I'm out. And if you're a momentum trader, the answer is, yeah, I'm out. So that's an Oracle, right? And so you can see that today we had it a little bit and then it kind of faded, right? Well, let's compare this with Tesla. So if we come over here and we look at Tesla, on this day here, and we're looking at this going like, all right, well, Tesla's got a little bit of momentum here on the daily. What's happening on the 30-minute? Okay, we got a little bit of momentum. Kind of turns gray, right? And then, okay, this turns gray too. But then you kind of get the situation where you've got this daily bar going and the 30-minute going. And now you've got this kind of combination of a little bit of staying power here. Of course, there's a squeeze here if you're familiar with that. And so what's great about this is that if you've kind of got these blue bars happening, it's telling you that there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of focus, there's a magnifying glass of the market, meaning that a large number of participants are like, and even Elon is buying, right? We don't know who at the time, right? But it just says that, man, the stock's being taken out at the ask. There's an aggressive buying. Everybody says, you hear the saying like, well, for every buyer, there's a seller, and every seller, there's a buyer. That's true. But what you got to measure is the intensity of the buyers or sellers. GameStop during that short squeeze, the intensity of the buyers is pretty high because they're panicking. They're going to buy it no matter what the cost is. But if the intensity of the buyers is really low, then people are putting in bids, it's going back and forth, and you're not going to get any momentum. So you need some kind of a catalyst, some kind of panic sometimes almost to get that going. And that panic could be simple as fear of missing out. So then we get the action here and we get these blue bars almost all the way into the close, which bodes well for saying like, okay, let's go ahead and keep holding, and then boom. Now on this particular one, I remember I was traveling, we got the options here in the room. I got out here simply because I was getting on a plane the next day. Henry actually kept it. And so these options that we bought at 10, I got out at 43. He got out like at 89. So awesome trade there, Henry. So another one is if we come over here and we look at Microsoft. So Microsoft had, kind of like Oracle, had this big earnings pop, okay? And on the daily bars, of course, they're gonna, after earnings and a big move like that, they're gonna be like that for a little bit. And so if we come over here to the 30-minute chart, oh, there we go. So here's the big gap up. We get up to 556. And, it opened up big and started kind of coming down. And then you're wondering, okay, well, like last time, is this something where we kind of want to buy this? Do we want to buy this and look at Microsoft drifting higher again? And instead what happens is after the initial 30-minute bar kind of fades, you kind of get these gray bars. And then you're going to notice that you start getting yellow bars. Well, the yellow bars are the yellow moment. It's momentum except to the downside. And so you're just kind of getting the sense with Microsoft that there's just no, there's no oomph there. There's a lot of gray bars, a lot of yellow bars, nothing sustained, and that's just, again, the idea here is just to kind of keep you safe from buying the high tick. So another one here, IONQ. This is one where you've got on the daily bars, we're just going. The move from 45 to 55 was pretty strong. And then this is always interesting. You have gray bars here, but you got the blue bars here. And now we're rolling back into blue bars here. So the idea with this, so what is, the blue bars, this is just a momentum tool that I created. But the idea is you're measuring volume. Is it riding the Bollinger Band? What's the relationship to the MACD and all these different things? And if they're all coming together, it's generally signifying that, the buying that's coming into this is pretty massive, or conversely, the selling that's coming into it is pretty massive. And essentially the rule of thumb is if you're going to buy something or you're going to short something against a key level, you want to see the gray bars. And then if you're going to see something continuing, you want to see the colored bars. So let's take a look at an example there. All right, so if we go back to Oracle, it's like, all right, where do we buy this thing? Okay, so here we are. We're coming down, and we're starting to look at support levels. So you have the 1272 extension, the 1618 extension, which also lines up with what's called a fire line, a voodoo fire line. That's one of our favorite support levels. And in this case, you can see we've got, instead of coming down, we got one little yellow bar there, but essentially they're staying gray bar, gray bar, gray bar, gray bar, gray bar. Great. What that means is there's not any conviction here. There's not any conviction to buy it, but there's no conviction to sell it either. And this is a super strong support level. And so when you come down into a support level like that and you see gray bars, meaning that there's not a lot of concentrated selling, then that's the time to start kind of picking it up again. So anyway, that's just a tool I like to see. Is just the idea is that, is essentially answering the question, is the magnifying glass of the market on this stock right here, right now? Because if it is, that trend is going to move. But if it's not, if it gets taken away, then it's going to fall apart. And so that helps, if you don't want to, if you're going to chase momentum, that's fine as long as the volume is pouring into that stock, as long as it's behaving in a certain way. But otherwise, you can kind of get sucked into trades that you don't want. All right. Anyway, I hope it helps. You guys have good trading. See you at the next update.
Hey, John here with Simpler Trading. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, comment down below and let us know what topic you want to see us cover next. Also, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you can get notified when we release new videos. And if you want to watch us trade in real time using our own money, go to simplertrading.com and learn how to sign up. Good trading, and we'll see you next time.